back, TCS viewers, for part 2 of our Sony FS7 review. Now, we shot our own short film here, and what we're going to do is we're going to head into Jump Studios. We're going to get this thing professionally graded. We're very excited about it. Now, our very own Levi Holwell did help out in this video. He did a great job. And by the way, he just finished his own short film. Check out the link in the video description below. We're very proud of him. He deserves a look. Also, Nathan Elson, TCS TV regular, he came out to help us with the lighting and do some director of photography work. He's going to come here later today, visit us, check out Jump Studios, and he's going to give us his input and what he wants to see happen with the film as well. So that should be good. So here we are at Jump Studios. Come on in. Jump Studios is a very talented video production house here in Calgary. We're going to meet Jeff August, and he's going to be the one to take us through our grading. Hey, Jeff, nice to see you again. Thank you so much. All right, so we are very thankful and very excited. Why don't we take a look at what we're going to do here?
Okay, let's head back to the production studio. This is where a lot of the magic happens at Jump Studios. Obviously, a bunch of computers and a bunch of talented artists.
So we're going to do our editing work here and our grading work here?
Well, actually, we do some editing work, but I've got a better place where we can do our grading work.
Oh, fantastic. Let's take a look.
Come with me. This is our 4K grading theater.
Wow, fantastic. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So this is really where we spend a lot of time fine-tuning the picture, all the fun stuff.
Hey, Jeff, so tell us a little bit about Jump Studios.
We're based here in Calgary, but we have clients all around the world. A lot of American clients. One of our big ones is ESPN, which we've been working with for.
I've seen that.
Yeah, over coming up on 20 years that I've been working with them. And then in the last 6 years, we've really started to focus on color grading and color correction.
Right, which is what we're really excited about here today.
Yeah, and it's really taken me back to school, and it really, it was about the time when the red camera came out, and the writing on the wall for perhaps film, intermediates and film labs was going to start to disappear. And, we've spent the last 5 years actually with, started another company called Look Labs, and we have a very successful color correction software plugin called SpeedLooks.
Yeah, so I know Jordan's been using SpeedLooks a lot now, and his workflow is much easier, much quicker. He has basically nothing to complain about at all anymore. So you've helped him out a lot, and that helps me out.
Features that were only found in high-end digital cinema cameras are now making their way down to professional, prosumer, even consumer cameras. And the images these cameras create, a lot of people don't know how to work with. Right. We saw that coming and created SpeedLooks because it actually allows you to create a consistent look that's filmic every single time.
Very cool. We're very excited to see how it handles the Sony FS7 today. Yeah. Let's take a look. Yeah.
There's nothing, everything that is in this image never got clipped. All the information's there. And now when I compare the FS7 to the F55 at S-Log3, obviously the F55 is the granddaddy, and it is a beautiful camera. I am so impressed with this camera. I mean, it's great, and for the price point, it's mind-boggling. There's so much goodness buried inside this log image that we can get all the detail that we want out of it. Wow. Yeah, it's very nice. Again, let's take a look at this shot, okay? You've got all that beautiful information, nothing clipped. So let's just bring down the brightness a bit. Nice.
Nice.
Nice. Ooh, that's a dark one. Here's a little trick. When I hit the B button, we can look at the blue channel, which is generally the noisiest. We can look at the red and we can see no noise. We can look at the green and see noise. So when we look at this, this is really beautiful. Compared to other digital cameras, I'm usually seeing digital artifacts.
Oh, yeah?
I think that has a very filmic grain personality to it. Again, I think that's another win for the FS7.
Awesome. This has been great. Let's just take it to the beginning and
play it down.
Play it through, yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, no, this is exactly like they said it was. Hey, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It's perfect.
Yeah, this is gonna be really good. long way.
I know,
we spent a
but-
lot of money. Okay, yeah, we should go.
What?
Yeah, we should go. Yeah, so I think we made a good decision there.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that was the right choice.
Yeah.
Hey guys, it's Jordan, the video guy, and now I finally get to tell you my thoughts on the FS7. And I really want to thank Jeff from Jump Studios for taking the time to process those files, really show you how much you can push it one direction or the other. And it looks great, but I can't really say I was that surprised because I've used Sony's F5 quite a bit, which shares the sensor with the FS7, and that was really my favorite look from a digital cinema camera up until recently. I love the way the highlights rolled off, and I found the skin tones really beautiful on it. FS7 shares that sensor. So the files I'm seeing are quite similar from it. The FS700 we've used primarily because it's a much more practical camera for field shooting. It's a lot more manageable, doesn't need a crew to work it. But I did find the FS700, the highlights could be a little harsh occasionally, and the shadows, you would see some noise there, which you'd expect in S-Log, but it could sometimes creep into the midtones. So I shot this scene here with S-Log 2 on the FS7, so we're kind of comparing apples to apples, and you can really see in a very high contrast scene like this, the highlight roll-off is quite a bit nicer on the FS7, and the shadow noise is quite a bit more well controlled. So looking at strictly sensor performance like we are right now, you can definitely tell that the FS7 is an evolution. You know, they're not duplicating the same look that we saw previously. It's a big improvement. So one of the big differences with the FS7 is now we've got Sony's S-Log 3 format, and it is very different from the S-Log 2 that they've got in the FS700 and the A7S. Big difference you'll find your exposure is very kind of crushed into the middle of the waveform, and that means you've got a lot of room on the highlights and shadows. But you'll also notice if you're exposing for those very low shadows, they're actually very noisy. It's great that they're there, we have that information, but for the most part, it's not that usable. Where we see the big difference though is you will find your highlight roll off quite a bit better. Now here we've shot S-Log 3, S-Log 2, and for comparison's sake, I just threw up a 709, just kind of straight out of camera, very contrasty shot. And you can see definitely that there is quite a bit more information in the highlights. Roll off is much nicer on the S-Log 3. The thing you need to know about S-Log 3 is it does take a lot of practice to learn to use it properly, and that was the case with S-Log 2 as well. We shot S-Log 2 for almost 2 years on the Camera Store TV. I can honestly say it took probably about a year before I learned to really work with it, and even then I'm learning new things all the time. Same thing with S-Log 3. I haven't had as much time with it, so I've got to say some good lookup tables or LUTs are really, really useful. I've been using SpeedLooks, which Jeff from Jump Studio designed, and I found they speed things up enormously to get you into a good usable range, and then you can start to play around with the file. But if you're starting with the S-Log 3 from scratch, it's going to take some practice, and you really need to know that going in. If you're investing $8,000 in a body, I would really suggest paying a couple $100s for a good pack of LUTs or some built-in profiles, so you can get that image into a nice usable space and then start working with it. So I love slow-mo, everybody loves slow-mo, and that's one of the big strengths of the FS7. And one of the things the FS700 was known for, you get 240 frames per second on the FS700, but it was all shooting them internally, unless you forked over the money for an Odyssey 7Q and a whole pile of hard drives and a software update that was also expensive. Then you could get 2K 240 frame RAW, but you would burn through those drives like you can't believe. It wasn't really practical for a lot of location work. Now we've got 180 frames per second right in camera to capacity of the card. It's 422 to the XAVC codec. And I was really curious how the image quality was going to hold up, and I did find some issues. You know, with our tobogganing shoot here, we've got a lot of stuff happening in the shadow areas, and the shadows are noisier when you're shooting those higher frame rates. You need to know that going in. You will also get a little bit more shimmer on some high detail things, a bit more. Didn't see any moire, but I did see some aliasing, so you might want to stay away from fine patterns or shooting your lenses stopped down all the way. But the quality is still quite a bit better than what we saw on the FS700 internal recording. Grade's a lot nicer. Again, skin tones are really lovely on this. I'd say it's very usable, but you just need to know what you're getting dealing with it. Overexpose a little bit and try and shoot either wide open or maybe diffuse your lenses a little bit. What's great though is if you're shooting up to 60 frames per second, I could tell absolutely no difference between that and shooting 24, 25, 30 frames per second. So you can go up to those without any worries, but if you are concerned about things like moire or shadow noise, you might want to be careful when you're going past that up to the 120, 180 frame per second. So I think a lot of people get worked up about the camera specs, and they tend to forget about one of the most important things, which is the lens mount that the camera uses. And the FS7 uses the E-mount, same as the FS700 or an A7S. It's very common and it's very adaptable to a lot of different lens mounts. We use it primarily with either Canon mount third-party lenses like Zeiss and Sigmas, the odd Canon zoom. You can drop PL lenses on there, but I'm always really scared to, because that E-mount is, I've never broken one, but I've heard reports of people actually tearing the front off, and that scares me. So you'll need to use lens supports when you're using larger lenses. So generally I find I work more with the small still lenses. Now there are native E-mounts like this 18-105 f4. They're small. This is a power zoom, which is kind of nice, but all of them are focused by wire, which drives me crazy. The faster I spin that ring, the more it jumps. So it's really hard to do consistent focus pulls. You never know exactly where it's going to wind up. However, they have brought out the mother of all E-mount lenses to launch with this camera. This is the new 28-135 f4, and it really does look like a broadcast lens. You've got a stepless aperture on it, zoom rocker, power zoom, which is controlled by the camera body. And this is the big thing I love about it compared to another E-mount lens. Click this down, we get a real focus ring on that. It's beautiful, it's easy to work with. But then they used a really weird focal length. This is a 28-135. This camera has a Super 35 sensor. So in full frame terms, you're starting at a 42 millimeter. That's not a lot of wide angle coverage. It's not that useful for narrative work, any kind of tracking shots, tourism videography. It's most useful for talking head interviews, things like that. I really think this was optimized for the A7S, and then they thought, hey, we can throw this on this camera as well. On the A7S, it's a very useful frame. On this guy, I don't totally understand it. It's a sharp lens, the out of focus rendition, the bokeh, it's beautiful, and it's parfocal, so you can do the old trick of zooming in, set your focus, zoom back out, it'll hang on to it. Doesn't weigh much at all, but it's just not the most useful focal length. I would really like to see a sister lens that's quite inexpensive to pair with this, maybe like a 16-28 or something like that. That would make a lot of sense. But if you're going to get a broadcast style lens, I'd like it to cover the whole zoom range. This thing doesn't. So I've coked Levi out from behind the camera for his first. We're going to let you talk this time.
I know, I do talk.
Yeah.
So we'll see how this goes.
So I come to the FS7 from comparing it to something like the FS700, the F5, more of a cinema camera. Yeah. But you work primarily with originally DSLRs, and then you've moved to mirrorless now, like the GH4, A7S.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how would you find something like this? Is it something that's compelling to you?
Even before we got the camera, we kind of knew just from the specs that were out there that for people who were shooting with stuff like the GH4, A7S, kind of as high as the mirrorless cameras are allowing you to go right now, this is going to be the camera that you're definitely going to be looking into if you want to take that next leap forward.
For sure.
And of course we had the F5 around, which you loved and we're always talking about. And I just always found it a little bit intimidating coming from those cameras.
Do you find like ergonomically it's pretty easy to jump onto?
Yes, extremely. It's not intimidating at all.
Right.
The camera operates extremely well.
In terms of the menus, because I know even coming from some of those other cameras, when I first saw an F5, I was terrified of the menu system.
Yeah.
This has the same menu system.
Yeah.
Do you find the same thing?
It's okay. My main gripe is just working your way through the menu with that stupid,
The dial with the
going
delay,
through.
it's awful. Any other handling things that you found
I mean,
were
the whole
disappointing?
punch-in thing. So when you punch in, check focus,
Yeah.
you have to reframe your shot over to your subject.
So you can't like drag it around the frame.
Yeah.
And it seems like something so easy to add in firmware. And the FS700, you could move it around.
Yeah.
It seems like something that's coming. I hope Sony's watching and listening. So you took it out and just shot some test footage.
Yeah.
And how would you say that compares to the images you're seeing out of an A7S, a GH4?
I think one of the big things people need to keep in mind about this camera is it is now a well-known side effect. If you shoot with this camera, you'll immediately want to make a film. So watch out for that, because if you hit record and then look at it later, you're going to be like, wow, this is easy.
That happened to me. I touched it when we were doing the first thing, and I was like, hey guys, what if we all packed out to the middle of Waterton and shot a film?
So watch out. Try to keep your ambitions in check.
So, I think Jeff August made a really good point when he said that this is a game changer for a lot of mid-level productions. It kind of used to be, if you were jumping up from DSLR or mirrorless image quality, you were looking at 15,000 plus to see a really noticeable jump in image quality.
Yeah, you get the features, right?
Yeah.
We're not
You
saying
get
it's
the-
that big of a gap to get the better
Yeah, like the
features, but
FS700 is a
image.
lot nicer to shoot
Yeah.
with, but the image quality wasn't a huge jump over the DSLRs, mirrorless cameras.
Yeah.
Now we're seeing that at the sub $10,000 range. So for a lot of professionals, I think this is going to be the most compelling option out there. There's really nothing it can't do that your clients might be requesting right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I do really want to see, Sony's kind of fallen into this mindset, I think, where we're all beta testers right now, and every new camera that comes out doesn't feel totally finished. I don't really care for that, because now we're guessing what's going to be improved.
Yeah.
I would like to see the menu response sped up. Some
Yes.
punch-in focus would be really nice. On the whole, I think those are small things we know can be done in software. And it kills me to say this, but I think the FS700 might be retired from camera store TV production. That's going to be actually, it's been years. That's going to be a tough thing for me to deal with. Thanks for sitting through this incredibly long review, guys. I know there was a lot of stuff covered, but I think it's worth talking about. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, and you can also follow the Camera Store TV account on Instagram. And just another side note, I'm going to be missing for a little while. I'm taking a little bit of time out because I've got a kid being born shortly. So Levi will actually be shooting the Camera Store TV for the next little while.
Yes.
So I'm hoping that it's consistent quality, but not like exponentially better than what I've been doing.
Yeah. I don't want to step on any toes here.
The good thing is
if I'm too good, you'll be angry. If I'm too bad, they'll be angry.
The great thing is
So-
I'm still editing, so I
Yeah.
can always sabotage your
Right.
work.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next week.
See you later.